and Tom Harmon.
Here.
Also, Megan Sheffield Smith is going to be joining us later, so we'll recognize her when she does.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a quorum right now?
I don't think we do until John shows up.
John and Sagan will be minutes late.
John's going to be late too?
No, John, I didn't hear from as far as I know. Oh, here's John.
John's here now.
There we go.
John, you're right here.
That's the guy we're looking
Now
for.
we have quorum.
So now we have quorum.
It's back up. Great time.
Great timing, John.
You should have already received the February 24th, 2026 minutes and had a chance to review those. We have a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll push minutes.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. We're going to change up the order of the new business a little bit. We're going to jump right down to G, which is Cherry Creek Dairy LLC, presented by Rosie and Millens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have Connor O'Gorman on the line from Cherry Creek Dairy LLC, but before I introduce Connor and have him speak, I'm just going to provide an overview of the project. So Cherry Creek Dairy LLC is constructing a new greenfield dairy farm site with 120 stall rotary milking parlor, 6 approximately 105,000 square feet freestall barns with 1,050 stalls each will also be constructed, housing 7,000 mature dairy cattle. Milk production will be over 500,000 pounds per day. A manure separation facility will be constructed with an anaerobic digesters to produce renewable natural gas, and also be constructed are feed storage facilities capable of holding over 100,000 tons of feed yearly, which will be harvested off an excess of 8,000 acres of local cropland facilitating. The facility will also offer housing for 60 to 70 full-time employees. There is no project cost to share today. Those amounts are still being determined. The IDA is going to consider incentives that will encompass property tax abatement, sales tax exemption, mortgage recording tax abatement, and an industrial revenue bond. But again, due to not having the project costs ready today, those incentive values and the timeframes are still being determined and calculated. This project is set to create 60 new jobs with 6 retained. The IDA is set to be lead agent on the seeker. And I do have a due diligence resolution and preliminary agreement to present to the board, which I'll have Matt review. But before I do so, again, I just wanted to introduce Connor. Connor is with Cherry Creek Dairy LLC. Connor, did I miss anything in that description? Is there anything else you want to share with our board before I open it up for questions?
No, I mean, that sounded great. It's a good scope of the project. I guess the only additional thing I would add is the ancillary jobs that are created because of this project. We're working with Alstrom Schaefer out of Jamestown for the electrical in the building, working with local concrete companies, Heidelberg Cement, down in Dunkirk, JMI, and then there's all the local hardware stores and dairy supplies and dairy dealers, down to the restaurants employees go get lunch at. So,
Thank you, Connor. Does the board have any questions before I pass it on to Matt? Right, Matt, if you wouldn't mind reviewing the resolutions.
Sure. So this is a due diligence resolution similar to every other due diligence resolution you've done for any other project seeking financial assistance. So authorize staff and us to work with the applicant and their counsel, moving through solidifying the numbers for the applications. We can determine total project costs, financial assistance, getting to the point where we can hold a public hearing on those. It'll also authorize us to proceed with seeker. A similar project went forward and was approved and went through all of this in Cattaraugus County. So we're going to be, to the extent we can, relying on a lot of the good work that was done in Cat County, adopting it as needed, modifying it as needed to adjust to fit to this project. But otherwise, due diligence resolution that includes the preliminary agreement, again, standard form that we use with other projects. Happy to answer any questions the board may have.
This Miller, can I add that the only thing unusual here is that the applicant has requested that we issue bonds, both probably tax exempt and possibly taxable bond for the solid waste recovery. You all know what the solid waste is that cows manufacture. So it's a matter of what happens with that solid waste. So the important thing is this resolution doesn't accomplish the next important step, and that is an inducement resolution in terms of the official intent. And that date is important because they can only include in the tax exempt bonds certain expenditures. So there will be probably one more resolution coming to you as soon as we get the numbers together. As Rosie says, those numbers aren't definitive enough yet to ask you to do that today, but there will be another resolution coming that is unusual for your typical process.
Thank you, Melon.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Dan Hetzenrader, can you move new business G1 for us?
Gladly, I'll move resolution 03-24-6-06, due diligence resolution and preliminary agreement, Cherry Creek Dairy LLC.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tom. We'll do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Ed Whitman. John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon. So the resolution is unanimously approved.
Thank you, Connor.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome PJ Wendell here with us this morning. Is there anything that you wanted to share with us?
Yep.
We're glad to have you here. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move into new business A, the 2025 audit presented by Dave and Dana.
Okay, thank you for having us this morning. I think this is our annual meeting to present your financial statements. Just as a lead off, we've had the nice opportunity to meet with your audit committee, who was Seguin, Dan, and Gary, along with management, Shelby and Mark and Kayla, to really talk about the audit plan prior to it commencing. So that was done back in February, where we had a really nice meeting to, talk about anything that's changed, anything that's new with regards to the IDA that we should be on the lookout during the course of our audit. So then we kind of deployed our folks. Dana was the lead this year. We had Rhiannon and also Thomas, who really provided the meat of getting into the detail and getting documentation to support the numbers that are included in your document. Once everything was complete, we had another meeting with the same group that we met with initially, your audit committee and management, to go over the draft financial statement. And we went over that in very good detail. And the intent of that is to make sure everything included in the document is fairly presented. If there was anything that needed to be reworded or relooked at, we had the opportunity to do that from that meeting until now. And so we're pleased that this is our final report. And we're going to just give you the highlights of the 2025 year.
Okay.
So I'll turn it over to Dana for her presentation.
All right. So I'm looking at the large document that you have in front of you, which is our financial statements. So I'm going to turn open to page 1. So as part of the audit, we provide you with 3 different reports. The first one is our independent auditors report that we're looking at here. And so really the whole point of us doing an audit is to be able to provide you with an opinion as to whether or not we feel the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with the standards. So if you read through, you'll see that we're issuing an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level opinion you can receive. So really, as far as audits goes, this is what you want to hear. So very nice job to management and everybody, your whole team in being able to achieve that. That's really great.
And I would just add, like, that opinion, I mean, normally you think, well, we're opining on the numbers that are included in this document, which is true. You have, the main financial statements, the income statement, the balance sheet, your cash flow statement. That opinion also carries to your disclosures. And there are a significant amount of disclosures in this document, like really good information that supports a lot of the numbers, your loans and what they're made up of, and your reserves against those loans, and you know, you have a lot of unearned revenue on some projects that are in play but aren't completed yet. And all that's encompassed in here. It's also encompassed in our opinion that we're providing. So just wanted to end that because it definitely is a big part of your audit, for sure.
So the next several pages, pages 3 through 7, are management's discussion and analysis. You know, this is a good space to find some very high level financial information written in a more narrative format. So if anybody's looking to understand, you know, what happened at the IDA during the year, this is a good area to review. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump to page 8, look at the face of the financial statements. So page 8 is the balance sheet. You can see all of the major funds of the IDA are disclosed separately here. You can see you've got a column for CREDC, and then on the far right-hand column, we've got the total for the entire organization. I'm going to turn to the following page. Page 9, you've got the income statement and just kind of very high-level overview of what happened during the year. So for the total organization, we had net income this year of about $1.5 million. Net position at the end of the year was around 26 million. So overall, a very good year for the IDA. You know, one of the biggest items on our balance sheet is our outstanding notes receivable. So at the end of the year, we had somewhere in the ballpark of about 130 loans that have been issued that are outstanding that we're collecting on. For 2025, from a collection standpoint, we actually did really well. You know, we have a couple of known loans that are troubled loans that have been identified. We've got a couple that we're keeping our eye on, but for the most part, we had a really great experience this year for our notes receivable. Okay. And then just a couple other kind of big picture items, things that are new this year. We did have a new revolving loan fund for EPA Brownfield. As of 12/31, we had one loan that was issued to a local organization that, you know, is really the intent is to clean up local brownfield sites. We've also been making large investments in real property associated with North County industrial parks too. So, you know, lots of really good things going on, lots of big things in the works, and just a positive year for all financially speaking. So following that, we've got a bunch of supplemental schedules for your review that should be read in conjunction with the financial statements themselves. We've got several pages of footnote disclosures, as Dave mentioned. Got a really nice footnote on those notes receivable. Disclose every single loan that's outstanding at the end of the year individually. Monthly payments, amounts, 30 days. You know, really a lot of good information on that. We also have a really nice footnote on your unearned revenue. You know, these are grants that the IDA has received that are unspent at the end of the year. So that footnote kind of discloses what's come in, what's still hanging out there, and what we've got left to spend. So a lot of really good information for your reading pleasure is there. All right, so I'm going to actually jump ahead now to page 32. And we can talk about the second report that we issue for the audit. So page 32 is our report on internal controls and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. So although we don't provide an opinion on the effectiveness of your internal controls, we do take them into consideration planning and performing our audit procedures. So ultimately, throughout the course of the audit, we didn't identify things of non-compliance, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we thought needed to be reported on. So if you read through the report, you'll see that it's a clean, positive report overall. Okay. If you want to flip forward 2 pages on page 34, this is the third and final report that we issue in the financial statements. And this is our report on internal controls and compliance in accordance with the uniform guidance. So your single audit. So the past couple of years, we reviewed your EDA CARES loan fund. And because it's so significant, we looked at it again this year. And, you know, each year we look at any new loans issued during the year. We look at the loan agreements, we get amortization schedules, make sure everything looks good. And we look at any other required loan documents and make sure that everything's reported within the federal guidelines. Okay. So again, here, no instances of non-compliance were identified, nothing from, an internal control related standpoint that is noteworthy. So an unmodified opinion, clean report overall. Okay. That kind of rounds out the financial statements. I don't know if you have anything you want to add. So we have two other documents here. The one-page document that you have in front of you is what we call our management letter. And so, this is a letter that, throughout the course of the audit, if we identify any areas that we think improvements could be made, whether it's to financial reporting or internal controls, or sometimes if there's new accounting pronouncements coming out within the next year or so, we'll put them in here, just kind of alert management to the new things that we got to be paying attention to. So we have two comments included here this year. The first one is related to service contracts and grant agreements. As I mentioned before, we receive a lot of, we receive a lot of grants at the IDA, and there's a lot of accounting here for what comes in, what's been spent, what's outstanding, and it's very complex. We have a lot of things going on. So the recommendation that we're making is just to make sure that we've got the tools and controls in place to make sure that we're able to effectively monitor and track those grants. In Kayla and Shelby, speaking with them in preliminary meetings, it sounds like we're already moving in that direction. We've got some software that we'll be purchasing to help, better monitor all of those grant funds. Second item here is related to transfers and grants. Oftentimes you'll have internal transfers made between our grant funds. We had one that we identified this year that was transferred. It was included in the budget. It was discussed within the board meeting itself. But when we read through the minutes, we didn't see any formal resolution approving the transfer, which is really best practice. So we've kind of acknowledged that in here and just made the recommendation that going forward, we probably should have some, way of memorializing the transfers that are approved from grant funds. Okay. All right, so one more document that we've got here. This is the stapled document. This is what we call our governance letter. This is a required communication from us as your audit firm to the board, the audit committee, anybody charged with oversight. And really the letter just summarizes how the audit went this year. Okay, so within the letter, it discloses that there were no new accounting pronouncements that were implemented this year. It also goes on to explain any significant estimates that are used within the financial statements, any sensitive disclosures, and then if there were any difficulties or disagreements with management during the audit, that would also be disclosed within this letter as well. We didn't have anything like that, so if you read through, you'll see that the language is unmodified. And then the last thing to note here is, throughout the audit, if we have any differences, like if we calculate a balance, and management has a different balance, we would accumulate those differences and communicate them to you within this letter as well. You'll see we didn't have anything like that this year to report on. So that language is also clean. All right, so that's everything for the audit that I plan to go over with you today. The last thing I just wanted to mention, Kayla and Shelby do a really nice job tracking everything. And I stepped onto this audit. This is my first year. I have no history with the IDA at all whatsoever. And they were extremely great to work with and bring me up to speed and very patient with me. And I just appreciate all of the hard work and the efforts that went into helping us prepare this document and just work through the audit itself. As Dave mentioned, we started the audit February 9th. So the fact that we're 6 weeks out from that and able to turn it around that quickly really is a testament to the level of commitment and dedication from all parties and being able to pick this up and move it to the finish line and present to you today with final documents. So thank you. Nice job.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for bearing with us. This.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially Anna for being her first year. Really came in feet running. Yep. Yeah.
Great job. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Thanks to the audit committee too. I mean, it's commitment, to go through it and review and but I think it's an important process and appreciate everybody's involvement in the process. So thank you.
Yeah. I think so.
Do we need to
Formally approve it?
formally?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a resolution.
No.
Any questions from the board? I'll move new business A, that we formally approve the audit presented by Dave and Dana from BWB. Do we have a second?
I like the second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The audit has been approved. I'd just like to reiterate, again, we appreciate all the work that you do, especially your first year. It's a lot to go over. You know, being on the committee, you know, we go through completely, not just, we did kind of a high level today, but we go through every single page. And, I mean, you guys know everything that's going on. He does an awesome job. And so all done by everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Say board members.
Excellent.
No, I'm free.
Next, we'll move into new business B, housekeeping resolution presented by Harris Beach.
Good to see you. Sorry I was late.
I have to unmute her because I think she's calling in by phone. Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you.
can you guys hear me now?
Yep. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm here today from Harris Beach. My name is Elizabeth Hughes to present two resolutions, both the housekeeping resolution, which will adopt the parish report of the agency for the year, and the review of policies, which will modify some policies and just approve of annual readoption. So just for some background too, we've worked very closely with management over probably the past 6 months, reviewing policies in depth of the agency. And when I say agency, I am also referring to CREDC and the CRC. So this is a joint presentation for all three entities at this point. There are a separate resolution for each in front of you as well. We've worked very closely in adopting and modifying policies as we see fit, and then also going through just annual housekeeping matters. So the first resolution in front of you is a general housekeeping resolution, similar in form to the one that the board approved the past 2 years. If you look through it, the first exhibit is the parish report, which Shelby, I know, has worked very hard in conjunction with other management members on preparing. I believe it is just about ready for submission. Shelby, if you have anything to add from the parish report at this point, please feel free to do so.
Yep, the only thing that we are missing in the parish report are the final financials, because we just got them this morning. And I just wanted to wait and make sure that there weren't going to be any last minute changes. So everything that you have in your printout, that 90-page printout is final, with the exception of the financials. I think the financials just show 0 right now because it's a pain in the butt to go in there and update it and change it. So yeah, so everything's good to go and ready to hit submit once I throw in the financials, which should only take an hour or so.
Great, thank you, Shelby. And then in attachment B, we have just the officers, authorities, committee appointments for the 2026 year, as well as legal counsel, mission statement, all of the required items that you are required to approve via the public authorities law. We reviewed these yesterday with governance committee and this resolution as a whole. The governance committee did move to refer this to the board for final approval. So that's all for the housekeeping resolution. If there are any questions on it, please let me know at this point. If not, then I'm going to move right into our policy resolution. All right, so as you know, annually, it is the best practice to review all of the policies in depth. The agency's done a great job, management's done a great job, and the board over the past 3 years of making sure your policies are super up to date, which has resulted in the need for not a ton of changes this year. Most notably, the change that you will see is the employee handbook. So we sat down with management, went through the employee handbook, and found some sections that were either duplicative or slightly in conflict with separate standalone policies of the agency. So in an effort to avoid any type of conflict and for simplicity's sake, we've modified the employee handbook, and I believe you should have a red line in front of you of it, to refer solely to specific policies of the agency, such as the conflict of interest policy, the anti-nepotism policy, the travel reimbursement policy, and the supervision evaluation policy, just again, to make sure everything's consistent, so modified. So the handbook defers to the policies. So to the extent policies are amended in the future, it avoids the need to go back and amend the handbook every single time. Again, this is the employee handbook. It is binding on all three entities and is binding on all employees of the agency. The new revisions will take effect on April 1st, 2026. We've spoken with management. We believe it's the best practice, which they will do. They will have at that point all employees execute an acknowledgement page of the revised handbook with the policies incorporated.
Elizabeth, they do not have the copy of that in front of them, of the handbook, because it was 84 pages long or whatever.
I will run through then a high-level view.
Yeah, Jeanette, that's okay.
That's all right.
Yeah, Jeanette does have it, a copy of it, and it was sent to all the board members prior to the meeting.
Great. Thank you for confirming. I'm going to now run through a high-level view of just the specific sections of the handbook were amended, and then we'll move into some correlating policies, which we moved provisions of the handbook into. So, like I said, we have written some language in the beginning that has employees defer to policies over the handbook in the event there is a conflict, and makes the policies, as they may be amended in the future, binding on all employees. We've modified the performance evaluation, confidential information, conflict of interest, competing employment of relatives, and travel policy to do all of that. We've also incorporated, which you guys have already had, but we're just restating, the sexual harassment policy and the airborne infectious disease policy into the handbook, which the labor law requires the agency to have. Moving on from the handbook, let's talk about now some correlating policies. So with the supervision and performance evaluation policy, we added in some provisions that were in the handbook, such as the need for an annual performance evaluation in December for all employees to determine salary increases and promotions, providing the right for the employee to review their annual evaluation, provide a written opinion, and then filing that in their personnel file. In the anti-nepotism policy, we incorporated provisions from the handbook of circumstances in which the agency will approve of employment of related parties. Those are when the individual qualifications are the best choice for the employment opportunity. The relationship will not be a direct reporting relationship, and the personal relationship will not adversely affect the businesses of the agency. That is all for the handbook section of policy amendments, I'll call it. Are there any questions on those as a whole? All right, otherwise, additional policies we have revised. We revised the credit card policy, which is applicable to the IDA only, to remove authorization limits for the past CFO. We continued those for the past year. That will be amended as of today to remove that. We've also modified the Code of Ethics and Conflict of Interest policy. There was a provision that required annual board review and readoption. That is not required by law. We review every policy every year as a best practice, but there is no need for formal board approval with respect to that specific policy. And then finally, there are 3 policies that every agency has to readopt every year without change, and that is the procurement policy, the real property disposition policy, and the investment and deposit policy. Again, with those 3, there are no changes year to year. The board just must readopt them annually. Are there any questions on any of the policies, anything that management wishes to add at this point?
Any questions from the board? Okay. Megan, I'd like to just let everybody know that you've arrived. So we're glad to have you here, and we're going to start right off and have you move new business B1 for us.
Absolutely. Resolution 03242601, housekeeping resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ted. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whiteman.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
The housekeeping resolutions are approved, and we'll move right into C, review of the policies and resolutions. We'll move that one. Ted, can you move that one for us, C1?
I will move resolution 03242602, policy approvals.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
And that is approved as well. So thank you, Elizabeth. We appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you. I
have
do
to,
have,
oh, go ahead.
I do have one last matter to just put before the board. I just want to present the summary tally sheets of the confidential board evaluation surveys that you have all completed. So this is something that does not need to be formally resolved to approve of by the board. The board just needs to accept them and review them. So to the extent I'm going to share my screen right now, everyone can see it in 1 second, hopefully. And I'm just going to scroll through. Again, there's one for each entity, same results for each entity. We have, these are great evaluations of the board's performance over the past year. So then once the board accepts these today, I will file them with the authority's budget office later today. So are there any questions or any discussion points that the board wishes to have based on these evaluations?
No questions.
All right, great. From there, you could just accept them into the minutes. You don't need to do a formal vote, just reviewing them is enough. So we'll identify that in the minutes. And then otherwise, that's all from the Harry Speech team. And thank you again to management and thanks to the board for having us.
Thank you,
Thank
Elizabeth.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
We all had an
Thank you.
opportunity
Have
to
a good
fill
one.
out an evaluation form, and that's what we just reviewed. So we saw everybody's different evaluations, so we'll accept those into the minutes. And
I'll add a little bit of color. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
So there were a couple like somewhat agrees. I did review Lizzie's summary. And it really was around timing. So that's something that Mark and I are going to kind of take offline and see what we can do as far as like improving the timeline of being able to fully review all of the resolutions or projects or whatever. But those were the only line items that were somewhat agree instead of, I can't even remember, agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that we'll take offline.
Okay. Yeah, there's certainly a lot to go over some months and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Always room for improvement.
Yes. Yep.
Next, we'll move into new business D, Dirt Works excavation, presented by Mark and Millen.
So this is this pertains to the Mason Industrial Site. As you're all aware, the county and the IDA teamed up with funding to make the Mason Industrial Park site 40 acres shovel ready. So we worked with Clark Patterson Lee. They did all the engineering. They put it out to bid, I don't know, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. They opened the bids. The lowest responsible bidder was Dirt Works. I think it's $196,000 and some change. So this resolution will approve us entering into a contract with Dirt Works to do the stubbing in the road, the water, the sewer, drainage. And by the way, I did go down and visit them. I didn't know about them and I had a long conversation, walked around their yard to make sure that they were the real deal, and they are. So I'm excited to get this going. And timeline wise, they should start work in the next few weeks. And I think the deadline on completing the project is in late June. Do you want to add anything, Millen?
No, Matt, do you want to introduce the resolution? Maybe even by virtue of a limerick?
Millen, what would lead you to say a limerick? Anybody who wants a story on limericks, come to me. We'll discuss it offline. I'm not going to fall for Millen's trap.
Wait, I printed it out someplace.
No,
Yeah,
the resolution before we get to the limericks. So this is for $196,638.60. Just by way of seeker background, the board adopted a negative declaration in February 2025. So you've already complied with seeker for the project. The resolution walks through the agency's compliance with its own procurement policy, including the policy as readopted today, and authorizes entering into the contract for the project. So That's it as far as the resolution goes. Happy to answer any questions. The board has it.
Straightforward.
Thank you. John, can you move new business D1 for us?
Yes, resolution 03-24-26-03, approving resolution Mason Industrial Site Infrastructure Bid Dirt Work Excavating LLC.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sagan. Go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
The resolution is unanimously approved. We'll move into new business E, Ripley Bond Resolution, presented by Mark, Shelby, and Mellon.
All right, I'll start out here. Again, we've been working for several years on making Ripley our the site that we control in Ripley, 148 acres, shovel ready. One of the funding sources, the Fast New York State Fast New York, which is through Empire State Development, awarded us a $5.25 million grant, but it's reimbursable. So it puts a real crunch on cash flow, right? You got to spend the money and then get reimbursed. We were able to negotiate instead of one big lump sum reimbursement, 4 payments. The county approved a resolution in December to a bond, by an IDA bond in the amount of $5.25 million to assist us, almost like a line of credit where we can pay out and then get, then seek the reimbursement from the state and get repaid and then pay the bond. So we worked on an agreement. Steve Abdallah, Millen, others, Shelby, myself, worked on an agreement of what exactly that would look like, because the county also wanted a mortgage on the property. So the agreement between the IDA and the county is laid out whereby, and I know I have the notes here someplace, it's, we can pay it back. I know I have it. I can do it from memory. So it's 3.75, I think, 3.75% interest rate.
Yep.
There's no term on when we have to pay it, as long as we pay it all back by December 31st of 2028. So we can pay the interest, we can pay principal, whatever. So it's pretty flexible. We also have a mortgage on, the county also has a mortgage on the property that's valued at $5.25 million to protect them. I'm thinking of other, any other?
Just that the interest will accrue. The interest will not be payable until, until the balance is paid off, essentially by the December 31st of 2028. We can make payments as we go. So as we get reimbursed, we could pay off the note to save us on interest. And obviously that's kind of how we're going to play the game, is, only utilizing that bond when we absolutely need to. Obviously this is a very big project, $17 million-ish. So, obviously the IDA can't float all of that, not that we would have to, but, we have kind of geared ourselves up knowing that this was around the corner from a cash perspective, but we still will need a little bit of assistance from that bond. But that will be like kind of the last play where we pull from there and pay it off as soon as we're in a comfortable cash position without having to jeopardize operations or loan.
And it's 3.5% per annum.
Right, which is the county. I'm sorry, Mark, that's the county's borrowing rate. In their resolution, they basically said, we'll give the IDA the benefit, if you will, of the county's really good credit. And you're sort of lucky because the general municipal law says that the county is allowed to buy your notes. So if the alternative is going out to a bank, you would certainly pay more than 3.5%. So you're sort of lucky that the county is legally allowed to buy your debt. And because you've got such a good working relationship with the county, they passed the resolution that Mark mentioned approving this bond.
Sense?
Any questions from the board? Tom, can you move new business E1 for us?
Absolutely. Resolution 03-24-26. Resolution Ripley Interstate Development Site Bond.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. We'll do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith. Ted Whitman. John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
So the resolution is unanimously approved. It's exciting to be moving along further on this and look forward to getting that into place.
By the way, the bid opening is today for that. So we've got all the engineering obviously out to bid. The bid opening is today, this afternoon.
Bids, Mark. Who is it? Do you open the bids?
Clark Patterson Lee.
They open the bids.
Yeah, they're the management construction oversight firm.
And how many people are involved actually opening the bids and laying them out?
Sometimes, you know, people like the contractors can go, the bidders can go, right? And I believe sometimes we have staff there, so it depends.
Okay. Just curious how it
Yeah.
works. Thank you.
Yep.
Next, we'll move into new business F. Resolution 324-26-05 of the members of Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency approving entry into agreement with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for grant funding for brownfield community-wide assessment project brownfield revolving loan fund.
Oh, it's a mouthful.
It is. Who's going to explain this to us?
Not me.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take.
Okay. I should have known it was me.
So as a reminder, Mark and I informed the board last summer when we were awarded these new grants from the EPA, but now we're officially accepting them and we've been working on budgets, work plans, et cetera, ready to move forward and launch these projects. So the first one is accepting $500,000. That's the community-wide assessment project. Basically, with this money, we're going to prioritize sites across the county to conduct environmental site assessments, both phase 1 and phase 2 ESAs, and we can also do asbestos surveys for vacant, underutilized buildings that we're working on trying to redevelop. So we'll be entering into that contract hopefully in April and doing a procurement for a professional services consultant and environmental firm who will conduct those on our behalf. The second one, we were fortunate enough to land $1 million grant supplemental funding for the brownfield cleanup revolving loan fund. Again, we established this a couple of years back with a first grant of $600,000, which we have loaned to Stell for their Gateway Lofts project. And this is now in place and we're ready to take more applications and do more loans specifically to, again, helping the development community, again, with the cash flow, whether they're seeking BCP tax credits, et cetera, and making some of these complicated redevelopment projects feasible. So with that, we'll have just over $1.6 million in that brownfield cleanup RLF, and we'll be taking more applications here starting this spring. Any questions?
I've already moved the resolution, reading through it once. So do we have a second on resolution? Thank you. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
That's unanimously approved. We appreciate all your work. Certainly, there's a lot of these brownfield type buildings in our area, so it's exciting to be able to start to get some of these back into use. Next, we'll move into the executive director's report.
All right, I'm gonna try to, there's a lot going on. I'm gonna try to be brief here because otherwise the meeting will run far too long. So I'm gonna start with hangar A conveyance to the county. So as you recall, back in, or you may recall, back in 1995, the IDA, the county purchased an IDA bond to build hangar A over at the airport. Remember, that's where Loscom ended up residing. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but, essentially, we paid on that bond for, over 20 years. And there was still a balance, remaining on that bond of, $81,000 and some change. So the county approved a resolution to forgive what we still owe on the bond, that $81,000. And if the IDA would convey that hangar over to the county, which was always the plan. And it was always the plan. So that's really what this does. It approves that, and we don't have a formal resolution, but it's more a verbal that will, somebody make a motion to accept that. Do you want to add to that, Millen?
Nope, I'm comfortable with that. It's, I think mostly a Shelby type accounting issue,
Yeah.
so that she can take it, the debt off of the books, and the asset, if I understand correctly, has already been reduced to zero. So it'll show up as income?
Yes. So we'll see an entry. It's a non-cash entry. Obviously, we're not collecting the cash, but there will be an entry on our P&L for that amount. Just basically recognizing the revenue to offset the liability. So the liability will come off, the hangar and the accumulated depreciation will come off. But to Millen's point, it's already net zero in our fixed assets anyways. So you won't really see it because I think that you see the fixed assets in the report that I provide is summarized. So there won't be a change on that, but it'll be liabilities and revenue, and that's just an accounting entry.
Yeah. And rather than incur the time and expense of a written resolution, I'm certainly comfortable with a voice vote.
And the county approved that in December, right?
Yep.
So it is, there is a formal resolution from the county.
So, is everybody comfortable with what we're doing here? Understand? Okay, all those in favor of transferring this to the county and them wiping off the debt, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Second thing I wanted to bring up is, the Welch's Building project, Savarino, Portage Street. So it was brought to our attention, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, that there is an AMI component, all right, area median income component, because they, part of their financing is through the USDA, which is a HUD program.
Guaranteed by USDA.
Guaranteed by USDA. It's a HUD program. There's a 115% AMI component, okay, area median income component. I could really get into the weeds on this, but I won't. Let's suffice it to say that the area median income in Westfield, the town and village of Westfield, is far below the area median income of the county. And as such, 115% of AMI includes over 80% of the population of Westfield, the town and village. So it's again, the other component to it is at 115% AMI, where 30% of their income can be allocated towards housing, the rents would be way higher than what Savarino is going to charge. So they're going to be charging more like 100% of AMI, not 115% of AMI. So it's market rate. It's market. I don't know if I explained that well, but it's market rate housing. The original resolution didn't say anything about, it just said apartments, but we thought we should bring it to your attention that it does have this component, but it still makes it market rate when you look at the income levels. Do you want to add anything, anybody, Christine or Millen?
You did a good job capturing.
It's just a technical point.
Yeah, it's technical.
Changing with the project.
Right.
Yep.
So it's just a technical point that our attorney advised we bring to your attention to make sure everybody understands and is clear
Yep.
that, you know, that program is incorporating a requirement.
Right. The resolution is clear. It just says, as Mark says, a residential project. But at the board meeting, Sam Savarino said, well, they're going to be all market rate, none affordable. And we wanted to clarify that that is true, but the final documents will contain this income restriction. And since that was a big sort of issue as to whether or not these were going to be affordable units or not, we wanted to clarify that while there is an income restriction, the rents will still be quote market. Nothing more to do. Just wanted to make sure that we were clear with the board on what the documents and what the program is going to be.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, good. Refresco, you probably heard about Refresco canceling contracts with grape growers across the Lake Erie region. You know, that obviously is puts the hurt on our grape growers. I did reach out to Refresco and wanted to have a conversation about, you know, the who, the what, the why. And I received a message back from, in the form of an email, not a call, from Refresco's Director of Communications. I just want to read it real quickly. Thank you for reaching out, Mr. Geis. After careful review, we have made the difficult decision to discontinue sourcing Concord and Niagara grapes from our longstanding U.S. grower partners, beginning with the fall 2026 grape harvest. This follows a comprehensive assessment of our current inventory levels, market demand, and long-term supply needs. We deeply value the relationships we have built with our growers, many with whom we have partnered for more than 2 decades. We recognize the significance of this change for them. The decision is the result of sustained grape market challenges and supply imbalances that we do not expect will recover in the foreseeable future. So as part of this, we do have a pilot with them that we approved, I believe, 2023. There was an amendment made to it a year and a half ago. There is an investment of I believe about $2.5 million. And I'm trying to get a meeting to sit down with them and talk about, it's from when they bought the Talcott Street building from us. And, you know, a pilot associated with that and an investment in that. Originally, there was job creation, but the amendment, there is no job creation, but there's that investment. So we're going to sit down with them and we're going to really say, hey, what are you doing? And if you're not going to, or if you're not going to comply with the pilot, then we need to have a serious conversation here. Any questions or additions to that? And then I guess finally, immunity bio. So you may have heard the news or read the newspaper article in the Buffalo News. You know, immunity bio inherited the terms of the contract with the state that Athenix was obligated to comply with. And those were some big things. You know, 1.5 billion with a B to be spent over 10 years, hiring 450 employees, including 300 workers within the first 2.5 years. So on and so forth. Well, obviously, when Immunity Bio took it over, they kind of started with a flurry and then they cut back and they cut back, and now there's a couple of cars sitting in the parking lot. But the state, and we've been working with the state on this, so the state has a new lease in place that Immunity Bio will pay $525,000 a year in rent. They were only paying $1 before a year in rent. So they're going to be paying $500,000 in rent. They must spend a minimum of $40 million by the end of 2028, $40 million in capital improvements. And a minimum of $5 million in annual operating spending from 2026 to 2028. And they must start manufacturing operations by December 31st of 2028. And then at the end of January, they have the option either January 1st of 2028 or January 1st of 2029 to purchase the facility for $1 if they comply with all the terms that have been set up by the state. The reason I bring this up is for hope, but also because we have a pilot with them with terms that need to be amended to align with the state's terms. And we're going to do that at the next meeting, I believe. So I wanted to bring it up now so that you know that we're aware of what's going on and we're going to be in lockstep with the state. You want to add anything, Millen, anybody?
I would only add that the employment starts very slow, right? They're supposed to have 9 employees by December 31st of last year, 25 by the end of 26, but it gets up to 450 employees. They only promised us 450 employees by December 31st of 2032. So this is probably a more realistic program for them. But again, they've asked us to sync our documents with what they've agreed to with the state. And, I think staff is prepared to recommend it, but we wanted to preview it with you first, and then we'll bring it up for a resolution probably in April.
And I have also 100 full-time employees by the end of 2028.
I agree. That's what their lease says.
And the other thing, I think the state's, it's like 1-year renewable contract. So if they don't comply with the terms in year 1, then they're not going to renew the lease. If they do, then they'll renew it for another year. If they do it, then renew another year. So that also.
I'll add that we did extend their sales tax through the end of the year to kind of match that methodology with the state. So, basically we're going to try to stay on the same terms with the state and connect with them in November, December, see if we can extend it.
Yep.
Go from there.
Keep our fingers crossed. Anyway, I wanted to bring that up. I think I don't have anything else except for I think there's go ahead.
Even if I could, in regards to community buyout, this is a frustration. This goes back to Vince Horgan. Not Vince's problem. They came back to the state of just allowing people to be non-compliant. Especially right now, Mark and I have talked about this extensively, that it's in the state's hands, but they need to pressure community buyout to get the ball rolling. Yet again, the state's allowing businesses to flounder, not to get anything done, not to produce. We've all said it's unacceptable for us here. So in the event now that there are other pharmaceutical manufacturers looking to move back to the US, it's a prime facility that is very specific. Can't be used for warehouse storage, data process, nothing. It's very specific. So, Mark and I have had extensive talks. I'm glad the state is moving in this direction, but we do need to hold their feet to the fire. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. There's no reason why we should be in this position this many times. Thank you for all you guys are sharing.
Just one last thing, and Jeanette said, please bring this up. The 2026 board schedule is it in the packet, or are you going to pass it out, or what?
We already passed it out in December.
Oh, okay.
Just acceptance from everybody stating that they reviewed the schedule and are accepting of the schedule for 2026.
All those in favor of accepting the schedule for 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's accepted.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mark, just to comment on Refresco, since I've had a second to chew on it, but I had the same thought when that news broke that, oh yeah, don't we, isn't there an IDA piloting a project? And I like your approach suggestion, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to jeopardize a project and the investment as long as they're complying with the terms, but also I would certainly, what you read that you got back is the canned response that they put out. So I would certainly think the relationship with the IDA warrants better conversation than that, so.
Yeah, we're gonna sit down with them
Yeah.
and have a serious conversation.
And I'll add to that, just came in yesterday, wasn't it? And Mark has responded, so that the conversation is still active. That was just the latest that came in yesterday.
You know, the issue with, you know, they're nationwide, right? They have a lot of different locations. They have a lot of suppliers. They're headquartered out of Tampa. You know, so there's a lot of things happening that the local, you know, Randy Bell, the local plant manager, he's like, I'm not the guy to talk to about this, you know what I mean? It's taking place. So anyway, we're gonna have that conversation.
Is that it?
I think.
Okay. Next, we'll move to the treasurer's report.
With respect to everybody's time, because it is a long meeting, and I didn't want to confuse you with two different sets of numbers for different timelines. I did not print out the March financials because I kind of wanted to focus on the audit. So I'll just reiterate, the audit came back clean. I want to thank Kayla and Crystal for all of your hard work with Harris, Kayla on the audit as well. And Crystal was brought in randomly and just kind of, we would throw stuff at her as we needed to. So I appreciate both of your hard work. And yeah, so back to the 2025, I just want to touch that there weren't any additional entries made. So the financials that I provided for December matched the audit. The only thing was that bad debt entry that I spoke of in December. I said that I put a placeholder in there, but we didn't end up booking that. So that was really the only change. And that was just a placeholder anyways. That's all.
Thank you. At this point, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the financial or credit history of a particular person or corporation. In particular, I would like to discuss the status of our loan portfolio and the financial and credit status of some of our borrowers. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're now back in open session. I would like to report that there were no actions or votes taken during the executive session and therefore no minutes of the meeting were taken. Any old business to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll consider the meeting adjourned. The next CCIDA board meeting will be April the 28th. And we'll be back at the BWB building, 201 West Street, James. We'll move right into CREDC. It's the Board of Directors meeting. We're again at the Center for Innovation and Economic Development. We're also streaming live on YouTube and Zoom. It's March the 24th and it's 11:50. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Gary Henry's here. Dan Hetzenrader.
Here.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Here.
Ed Whitman.
Here.
John Healy.
Here.
Tom Harmon.
Here.
You should have already received the December 16th, 2025 minutes and had a chance to review those. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes? Thank you, Ted. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been accepted. We'll move right into new business. Again, reviewing the housekeeping resolutions. Do we need to go over these?
No.
It's the exact same.
It's exactly the same DMB here as what was covered by Harris Beach.
Yep.
And the IDA. Same exact.
So I'll move both resolution 3-24-2601 housekeeping resolution and resolution 3-24-2602 policy approvals, which are identical to the ones that we approved during the IDA meeting. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sagan. We'll do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
And so those resolutions are approved for CREDC as well. Next, we'll move into resolution C. Nate, are you going to be presenting this one?
Josiah is going to be presenting the first one here.
This resolution is to renew a memorandum of understanding with the Friends of the Chautauqua County Greenway Group, which is an umbrella organization for many of our trails organizations here in the county. We've had a productive working relationship with them, coordinated through our trails coordinator, Jacob Ogway. And so we simply want to renew that agreement.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we will renew that agreement with the Greenway. Next, we'll move to new business D.
Okay, and then the next item is looking at the awards of the Economic Growth Fund. And I just want to explain a little bit of the process that we've gone through this year to come to these recommendations. So the Economic Growth Fund is a pot of money that has been awarded to CREDC based from the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation. And we have an annual process each year where we can solicit applications. That happened in January, starting in January, and first with letter of interest and then full applications. Review committee was set up, as has happened in years past, to review those grant applications, which were scored and ranked. And then recommendations from the review committee were brought to the advisory board for the Partnership for Economic Growth. The advisory board reviewed that, provided some feedback, and then is now making the recommendation to the CREDC board to approve the resolution. And the organizations that are funded or recommended for funding are listed in the resolution. I'm not going to go through each of detail, but in total, that was $217,500 in awards. And so we'd like to present that to the CREDC board for approval.
And I just wanted to tack on, this is the 5th year, I believe, we've been doing this since 2021. Again, we started with our first multi-year Wilson Award, as well as the $500,000 in ARPA funding that the county awarded CREDC. And it's really just helped leverage tens of millions of dollars of investment to support community and economic development projects across the county. And that's really the aim of it, to leverage some of these larger investments and bring some state, federal, and other philanthropic resources to support our work. So
it's excellent work. Thank you. Dan, can you move to business D for us?
Gladly, I'll move resolution 03-24-26-08 of members of the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation approving economic growth fund awards and entry into agreement with local grant recipients for the Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Tom. Go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whitman. John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
The resolution is unanimously approved. Next, we'll move into new business E.
So this resolution, we realized we didn't have a record of this board approving this grant, even though it does date back to late 2024. So we're finally ready to move forward with this project. It's a $180,000 grant from the New York State Department of State's Brownfield Opportunity Area. Specifically, this is their countywide pre-planning program. We'll be working with a consultant. We'll get to that in the next resolution, but to really review our inventory of known and suspected brownfield sites and to start to prioritize those sites, think about redevelopment opportunities, and also seeing if there's any concentrations in areas that make sense for any of our municipalities to go through the BOA nomination process, which opens up additional state planning resources and tax credit benefits. So we look forward to starting this, actually kicking this project off next month. I just wanted to briefly mention too that it's going to work really well in tandem with the $500,000 the IDA just approved for site assessments and helping us kind of prioritize which sites we want to conduct those on.
Thank you. Sagan, can you move new business E for us?
Resolution 03242609 of the members of the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation approving entry into agreement with the New York State Department of State for the Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. We do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. And finally, we'll move into F.
So this resolution approves entry into a professional service agreement for the preceding project. Even though we weren't required through the CREDC procurement policy for professional services, we went and did an RFP process regardless. A lot of great firms out there. We received 7 proposals. We narrowed that down to 4. We interviewed 4 firms and we recommend contracting with Colliers Engineering on this project.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Ted, can you move new business F for us?
Move resolution 03242610 of the members of the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation approving entry into professional service agreement with Colliers Engineering.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
That resolution has been approved. Do we have an executive director's report?
We do not, sir.
Okay. Treasurer's report?
Nope.
Okay. Any old business? Hearing none, we'll consider the meeting adjourned. Next, we'll move into CRC for the Board of Directors meeting. We're still in Dunkirk at the Center for Innovation and Economic Development. We're streaming live on YouTube and Zoom. It's March the 24th at noon. And we'll go ahead and do roll call. Gary Henry's here. Dan Hetzenrader.
Here.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Here.
Ed Whitman.
Here.
John Healy.
Here.
Tom Harmon.
Here.
You should have already received the minutes from October the 28th, 2025 and had a chance to review those. We have a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been accepted. We have the same 2 resolutions that we've already approved from Harris Beach. Resolution 03-24-2601 housekeeping resolution. And resolution 03-24-26-02 policy approvals. Any questions on those policies? Do we have a motion to accept those?
So moved. I'll second.
Take a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the policies have been approved for the CRC as well. Treasurer's reports. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time this morning.